Hey folks, my name is Ethan Diamandis with the Oddshark MLB team. We're going to get to a lot of things today. First, we'll start with free agency, but before we do that, got to bring in our other guest, the one, the only, the bearded beauty, Mitch Bannon. Mitch, can you grow your beard a little bit more? You're making me seem like I'm underselling your introduction.
No, this is about as far as it gets. I can't sleep at night if I get the bushy beard. Sorry to all the beard lovers out there.
Well, so much for that rugged masculine look that Mitch could provide to all our viewers. Instead, I guess we'll have to talk about another handsome young man, Shohei Ohtani. He's the top of the odds board. Everybody's talking about him. A $500 million deal on the table, but Mitch, he could really go anywhere. I know that right now it's the Dodgers that are favored, but he could end up with the Cubs, the Giants, the Yankees. With Ohtani, what are some factors you are considering when you're maybe placing a futures bet on where he's going to end up?
I think you're a little more optimistic than I am on the potential destinations for Ohtani. I think, like, when I'm thinking about where he's going to go, it sounds like he wants to go to the West Coast. It sounds like he really cares about winning. Obviously, the team that signs him is going to need like $500 million in potential spending. All of that points me back to the exact same team. All of that points me back to the team you just mentioned, the Dodgers. I think they're the obvious fit, the natural fit. It's become impossible to hide it at this point. They only have two guys on their books next year making over $13 million. That's Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. There's a clear payroll spot for him. There's a clear position now that JD Martinez is free as a DH. They'll need the long-term pitching too. I'm pretty confident he's going to be a Los Angeles Dodger. Sorry for anyone else in the MLB who's hoping otherwise.
Man, I can't even imagine the meat of that order. You got three MVPs probably hitting back-to-back. And like you said, when I think of factors for Ohtani, I think who's going to be comfortable with the health risk, right? I mean, let's say I'm the GM of the Toronto Blue Jays, for example, right? Or I'm the GM of a franchise that maybe doesn't have the financial backing that the Dodgers do, for example. I'm really sketched out. Like, I don't want to touch a guy that is going to try to pitch and try to hit. I'm probably not on that. But like you said, the Dodgers do have a long-term need for starting pitching. So it makes a lot of sense. But when we look at long shots, the Cubs, they're making moves, right? They got a new manager. Seems like they're really looking to spend, if they're not bringing back Cody Bellinger or chasing Matt Chapman, who we'll get to in a minute. I mean, are there other long shots on the board? I kind of like the Mets at plus 1,000. Could we see the Yankees? Are there any other clubs you think that could take a stab at Ohtani?
Yeah, I think if he becomes open to moving to the East Coast, which we don't like, no one really knows that much about Ohtani. This guy keeps all of his cards so close to the vest, but everything we've heard says West Coast. If he's willing to open up to Boston, the New York teams, Toronto, I could see the Jays making a bit of a run. Like, trust me, I don't think he's going to sign with the Blue Jays, but I could see them being that like second or third team at the end of his signing period. They got a lot of money, potentially open, especially if they know that one or both of Vlad or Bo Bichette are going to hit free agency. It's a good city. I'm looking out at it right now, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I could see them being in the mix, especially because you bring Ohtani to a city like Toronto, and he almost pays for himself, like the endorsement deals, the people you bring to the ballpark, the potential TV opportunities. I think you can justify that to ownership. Now, all 30 teams could justify that to ownership, but I think Toronto is in a potentially very good spot to make that pitch. What about you?
For sure. Yeah, I could see Toronto pitching the greater picture for sure. And then when I think of the luxury tax, though, I mean, how many teams are going to be willing to, carry this burden that is, what's he going to be making in terms of average annual value, right? Close to upwards of 35 mil. We're looking into the 40 mil range. I mean, teams that are going to crush the luxury tax if they're competing the whole time that they have on Ohtani, obviously not the entire time, but some teams are going to have to hit the luxury tax. And I'm not sure if Toronto, given where its competitive window is going to be able to justify that to Rogers ownership. So, I mean, we'll see. It's certainly a fun idea. I'll throw it back to you quickly on Ohtani before we move on, Mitch. What do you think of the report that he's, hesitant about clubs who may leak his meeting with the rest of the public MLB space, right? He said, I don't want anybody, spilling the beans on who I'm meeting with, and that could, deter him from signing somewhere. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Maybe only interesting for us on like the media side and not just like the casual baseball fan. But like you look at a lot of free agency, you look at all of Scott Boras agents, and that's leak city. You hear everyone he's meeting with, you hear everyone who wants him because that helps drive up his price. I think him telling teams I don't want leaks just shows that it's like not really about money for him. Like he knows he's going to get close to or at $500 million. So it doesn't really matter the extra year, the extra 20 million you're going to get. He just wants to pick the best destination and keep it as quiet as possible. So I think it kind of encapsulates his priorities and who he is as a person.
For sure. We'll move to Cody Bellinger, arguably, the best non-Ohtani hitter in this class. He's favored to go back to the Cubs. I could see it. I could also see him going somewhere like the Yankees, the Giants, the Mets, the Dodgers. Mitch, when you think of Cody Bellinger, is he going to be wearing pinstripes? I mean, where do you see him ending up?
Yeah, I think if you want a safer bet, the Yankees and Cubs make a lot of sense. They both need a big bat. They're both big spenders. If you want a little more value, I kind of like the Giants at plus 550 to sign him. They've been looking for a big fish the last few off seasons. They missed out on Judge. They had Carlos Correa for like 12 hours. They're probably going to miss out on Ohtani too. The next best option is a guy like Bellinger. They need a big bat. They need some thump in that lineup. And I think they're competitive. Like they've been particularly mediocre the last 2 years. They've won almost exactly 81 games the last 2 years. They could convince themselves a guy like Bellinger would get them back to competing with the Dodgers and pushing close to 100 wins like they did a few years ago.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think of the Giants and also the dance they did with Michael Conforto, another Scott Boras client, right? A guy that had potential from years ago. Of course, Bellinger had a better 2023 season, but there's some risk there. I can see him going to New York, right, and wearing the pinstripes and hitting 35 homers at Yankee Stadium. But you got to think in a couple of years he gets bit by the Giancarlo Stanton bug, and he's playing 70, 80 games. Who knows how his health holds up? We have that shoulder, but I actually did have the Giants as my best bet at plus 550. Not just tailing Mitch, though. That is sometimes a good betting strategy. We'll go to the next guy on our list. It's Matt Chapman. Now, I can't think of anybody who's a greater beneficiary of a weak free agency class. He's really spread out in terms of his destination odds. So, right, we've got the Jays at plus 350, the Yankees and Mets also at plus 350, and then the Dodgers at plus 400, long shot on the Cubs at plus 900. I want to ask you this first before we get to destination. 4 years, $100 million. Do you want Matt Chapman on your roster for that price?
Yeah, for sure. I would take that any day. And I think it's like, hey, we had a front row ticket to the Matt Chapman experience. That is a streaky hitter. He swings and misses in the zone a lot. But I think he's the type of guy that a team is going to talk themselves into giving a 4, 5, I could maybe even see 6-year deal because you can bet on the defense. There's like a 2-WAR floor just if he goes out and plays defense and is like a well below average hitter. So he's kind of despite it being a weak free agency, despite him being a very high variance guy, there is a high floor there, I think, with the defense. And so I think that's going to get him over $100 million.
Yeah, it's not just, I mean, if you polled Blue Jays fans, for example, about, who is their, most irritating player on the roster, a lot of people might say Matt Chapman because he does have a tendency to swing and miss in the zone a lot, which I think is particularly frustrating. But like you said, there's all these other intangibles, like, first of all, his leadership, I think his work ethic we've seen on a regular basis, right? And then the WAR floor that you talked about based on defense alone. And if you want to add it to other consistencies that he produces, you've got his exit velocity stuff. I mean, this guy crushes baseballs. He's a muscle man that hits liners, and he does it like very few hitters in baseball. He's at the top of exit velo boards all the time. So in terms of where he might end up, I'm going to actually, if I'm betting this, I'm going to bet the Cubs at plus 900. I think that's my Hail Mary bet. They have been rumored to be chatting with one another. And if the Cubs aren't really going in on Ohtani, though they are second on the odds boards, I think Matt Chapman is a decent second option for them.
Yeah, I actually don't hate the Cubs. I don't hate the Giants at plus 1,200 either, but I think this is probably going to come down to the Jays versus Yankees. Like those are the two AL East clubs with clear needs at third base. I think I'm talking myself into the Yankees. Maybe it's like the narrative of the Oakland to Toronto to New York third baseman, following in the footsteps of Josh Donaldson. They're kind of like similar good defenders, flashy guys, clubhouse guys who bring a lot of energy. Maybe I'm just buying into the narrative too much, and I'm sure Yankees fans don't want the Josh Donaldson comp, but I think New York is my bet here.
Yeah, and we talked about that from the start of the season. Future New York Yankee Matt Chapman, every time he'd homer, which was only 17 times in 2023, but we're like, this guy's got Yankee written all over him. So we'll see. Now, arguably the most intriguing. Ohtani is everything, but the next most intriguing guy is Yoshinobu Yamamoto from the NPB. Mitch, what do you know about him, and where do you think he's going to end up?
Well, I know he's a short king, which is interesting. We just saw Sonny Gray sign 3 years, $75 million with the Cardinals, so we know the short pitchers can get paid. But this guy, he's kind of a weird guy. He's short, but he throws 100 miles an hour. He's got a lot of good secondary stuff. He doesn't have like the traditional Japanese mold of pitching. He actually throws a lot of sweeping breaking balls, unlike a lot of guys do there. There are a lot of splitters over the top. I think he's going to get paid. Like, I think people are going to look at free agency. They're going to look at it is a pretty strong starting pitching class, but he's just way younger than everybody else. You look at the success that Kodai Senga had last year. I think that's going to allow a lot of people to buy in. People are going to buy in on the 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And if we're looking at big spenders who need starting pitching, I'm looking at the Mets versus Yankees. I think the Yankees are in a particularly weird spot in this pitching free agency where, like, okay, Sonny Gray was never going to go back there. It was a disaster. He already signed too. Jordan Montgomery, they traded in kind of a weird, we want him out of town trade. So I don't know if he's going to go back. Marcus Stroman hates the Yankees. He's not going to sign there. So it's really Yoshi or Snell for the Yankees. And Snell's kind of a sketchy guy with the walk. So I could see them really dropping like an 8-year contract on Yamamoto.
I stayed in the AL East for my pick. I like the Red Sox. I think they've got new front office shuffled. Maybe they want to take a stab at something. And I think we saw them come out of the woodwork when they signed Masataka Yoshida last year at like a way, way overpriced price. And everyone was kind of criticizing it. And, there was a market for him. And the Red Sox said, nah, screw this. We're just going to give him way more than everybody else. And that kind of worked out. And I like him as a comp to Masahiro Tanaka. I like the splitter. I think the rotation is similar. Again, Tanaka, not a huge guy, but a guy that pitched in the AL East and a guy that the Yankees or the Red Sox rather, got a pretty good look at. So I think the Yankees are sneaky. And like you said, they desperately need to add to their rotation. But we've got the Mets at plus 220, the Red Sox at plus 400. And then the field, I think I'm going to go with the Red Sox there at plus 400. Last guy, we'll hit him quickly because Mitch told me before the show that he will literally bet a part of his body on Josh Hader going to the Rangers. Please elaborate and tell me which part of your body you're willing to wager. Keep it PG,
I think
though.
These two fingers. Like, I think Texas Rangers are going to sign Josh Hader, and I'd be willing to let up a couple of useless fingers. I don't know if I'm putting an arm or a leg up there. Not my head, that's for sure. I don't want to get sniped on that one, but Josh Hader just makes sense to be a Texas Ranger. They had to go out and get Aroldis Chapman to save their bullpen last year. Jose Leclerc is good, but he's not like the dude for a World Series team, although he was kind of a dude for a World Series team, so maybe I'm wrong there. But I think he just makes sense. He's not like a Southern guy, but he gives me like Texas vibes. The Texas Rangers have spent a lot of money the last few off seasons. They're not a natural fit for any of like the big hitters or big starting pitchers this season, so I think they're going to spend their money on the bullpen, and they're going to sign Josh Hader to a long-term deal.
I like Orioles, man. I like the Orioles magic. I know that, okay, let's say, well, Felix Bautista is out for 2024, right? So they have a need. They also have Yainer Cano, who is probably like going to be a top 5, top 10 closer anyways. But I've been waiting for this Orioles splurge on somebody pitching, like a starting pitcher, trade for Corbin Burns. Mitch, you and I have talked about this before. Like, why aren't they making these big moves? They have the core, the young core. They have so many complementary pieces and a few young stars. They're just like a little bit of cash away from like an elite rotation or an even better bullpen. So at plus 1,000, I think those odds are probably accurate. I think Hader could end up there. I'm also looking to the Phillies. I feel like their bullpen has been good and bad and good and bad, and they're always looking to make moves there. So I'd watch the Phillies at plus 650. But Baltimore at plus 1,000 would be my Hail Mary bet. Of course, Mitch has his theories about the Rangers. We'll comb back over the free agents quickly as we're close to wrapping things up. We said bargain or bust. This was our little segment of the however many free agents we just talked about. Mitch, which one do you think is most likely to be a bargain?
Oh, okay. I actually went off the board for my bargain. I'm going to go a little deeper in the bag, a guy we haven't mentioned yet. I think Adam Duvall is going to be the steal of the offseason. Maybe this might be too big of a deep cut. I might be too deep in my bag for this one. He played 90 games last year. He had an 830 OPS. That's like all-star caliber stuff. He plays all three outfield positions. 90 games, he had 21 homers. That's like a 35-40 home run pace. I think he's the real deal. I think he should be someone's starting left fielder, starting center fielder, or at the worst, like a really good platoon bat. Whoever gets him, I'm going to be all over that signing. What about you?
He's a good fit in Toronto. The problem I have with Duvall is like I think you can take any like 80 game slice of a season for him and it might be 800 OPS. But then when you take the other 80 games or break it into to 40 game samples, I feel like you could see like a 550 OPS with a 45% strikeout rate and some really harsh platoon numbers. So I do think Duvall is going to be a really good bargain. Like I said, I think the Blue Jays are a club that should probably take a look at him. But in terms of the guys we talked about, we know Yamamoto is going to get a bag, but I still think like he could be arguably a bargain. Are they going to give him 20 million a year, 25 million a year? If this guy is an ace and produces to the extent that he did in Japan, he could wind up being a really solid signing. And when you find a talented starting pitcher, a consistent starting pitcher, again, going to the Blue Jays base with someone like Kevin Gausman, right? Like a guy that you don't have to worry about volatility. There's just a window in free agency. You're like, this guy's good, maybe the best of the class. Let's give him a 5-year deal, make it a fair term, and let's just roll with it. So if a club sees that consistency in Yamamoto, I think he could ultimately end up being not a flea market bargain or an Adam Duvall bargain, but a bargain based on the price that he'll receive. We'll go to our bust section of. I don't know if you went off the board for this one, but who do you think is most likely in this free agent class of falling short of expectations?
I did go off the board as well for this one, but I'm going to mention Cody Bellinger as well. I think there is just such a crazy volatility that we've already seen. Normally, like you get to free agency in your late 20s and your 30s, and it's like you're projecting out what the floor will look like. We have seen Cody Bellinger's floor. It is a almost useless hitter. It's a 550 OPS. It's striking out a gajillion times. Sure, that correlates to his shoulder injury. Sure, he bounced back from that. But seeing a guy's floor before you give him $150 plus million is really scary to me. So I would be scared of Bellinger. My off-the-board pick is Jorge Soler, because he's kind of like a Cody Bellinger light in that we've seen the high highs. We've seen the 50 home run season. But we've seen the 200 strikeouts, the no defensive value, the I'm not going to really hit as many home runs as you would hope. So I'd be a little scared of any team that signs Jorge Soler.
Yeah. Soler, again, when I've kind of combed over the options for Blue Jays free agency, for example, Soler and Teoscar Hernandez, Lourdes Gurriel, they're kind of, the Jays obviously have a need in left field. I like Soler because he's a new face and he's intriguing. But again, defensive value, the same with Teoscar, arguably, but he could whiff 200 times, like you said. So I see that again. I stayed on the board for my bust pick. I went with Matt Chapman. I think, his floor is high because of his defense. It's not Cody Bellinger 550 OPS, but I think there's just a world where Matt Chapman is what he was last season. Like maybe he'll crack a few doubles, but if he's having problems with bat speed at 30 years old, over the next few years, if you can't hit a heater or a breaking ball in the zone now, it's not going to get any better as you get older. Obviously, I believe in his work ethic and his strength to maintain that bat speed, but time isn't good for anybody. So I'm thinking Matt Chapman. I think there's a world where he's just a low 700 OPS guy for the rest of his career. I mean, that's fine, and maybe some clubs are comfortable paying $25 million a year for a guy who's probably between 3 and 5 WAR, even if he produces those offensive stats. But to me, if I'm a front office executive or I'm a scout and I'm looking at that, I'm probably steering clear of a guy like Matt Chapman just because I don't know how high the ceiling goes anymore.
Yeah, fair. That's super fair. And I think the risk is obviously the defensive metrics out there are always really weird, but they've kind of started to tick down for Chapman. So if that trend continues, then you lose the 2 WAR floor, and then we're looking at a guy who might be not elite at defense anymore and might not be able to hit either.
Yeah, I mean, we can go round and round. We could do a whole other 10 minutes on defensive metrics, outs above average, the difference between all of that. But consensus, I mean, you poll every manager, every fielding coach in baseball and say, name, the top 5 third basemen. I think Matt Chapman is, 2 or 3 on most of those lists. Um, Anything else, Mitch, you want to add before we wrap it up? Any other notes about free agency or off the board guys you like?
No, that's all I got. Just thank me when Josh Hader signs with the Rangers, and don't come calling for my fingers if he doesn't.
Yeah, we'll be that'll be the next Odd Shark video. There'll be a warning on that one. So yeah, guys, thanks for thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Odd Shark, and take a look at our social media pages too. Mitch and I are going to try to do a lot more MLB videos. The offseason is really, really fun, man. I think like a lot of sports fans almost crave the offseason buzz more than the season itself. Baseball can be really long, so stick with us. We'll do what we can, and we'll see you guys again soon.
See ya.